Wungarari Majinu, Paula Kruger, ABC Radio, Canberra Warraji.
On Monday, we were talking about building a granny flat in your backyard here in the ACT, and it prompted quite a few questions about how people can age in place is the term that's often used. Well, that's where retrofitting is done to an existing house, and it's to allow an elderly person to stay in their home rather than moving into a nursing home or a retirement village. Danielle Robertson is from DR Care Solutions, and she's been helping families for more than 30 years. And she's written a blog about how to get the correct support for older home owners. She's with you right now. Danielle, great to have you on Afternoons today.
Thank you, Paula. Lovely to speak with you.
So firstly, why do older people want to remain in their own homes?
Look, I think the biggest issue is that people don't like change. They don't want to move, and there's been a lot of sensationalism about what's happening in aged care at the moment, so they'd rather age in place and bring in support and quality care services so that will allow them to remain at home till the day they die, if possible.
But what are the barriers for them staying in their own homes?
Look, there's a lot of barriers. It can be the size of the home itself. It might be the old family home that they've been there for 50 plus years. It might be a combination of just the amount of furniture and stuff.
Yeah, stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know what else to say, but there's a lot of compilation over many, many years of compiling stuff in the home and not getting rid of things. And a lot of older Australians prefer to hold on to things just in case they might need them. And it's about going into a home and making sure that person can remain safe and live in the home for as long as possible, but also to enable workers to be and remain safe while they're working in the home with that person. So it's not just for the resident themselves, it's actually for the care workers and the cleaners and support staff coming in to make sure they're safe as well.
Which brings me to asking you about the kind of support that is available to help people. What's out there?
Oh, there's government-funded support, there's private fee-for-service support. It can be from domestic cleaning through to meal preparation. It could be transportation. It could be companionship and support on that basis. It could be personal care and hygiene tasks. It could be gardening. It could be just companionship. There's so many things that you think about, things that you do on a daily basis. It might be that you don't really want to be cleaning your home anymore. If you're 80 or 90, who wants to get down and scrub the shower and clean the floors, vacuuming? I mean, a lot of people are sprightly, but some find that very difficult and tiring. So bringing in those support services. But to ensure that the house is clean and tidy and free from clutter and furniture, so that enables that older person to remain safely in their own home for as long as possible.
You're on Afternoons on ABC Radio Canberra, and you're hearing from Danielle Robertson. She's from DR Care Solutions, and we're talking about the things that you can do to a home so that an elderly person can stay at home rather than moving into a nursing home or a retirement village. You're talking there, Danielle, about clearing some of the stuff, clearing some of the clutter and keeping it clean, so it's a safe work environment for the support services that come in. But sometimes you actually need some renovations, especially if there are mobility issues with the elderly person in the house. What are some of the major renovation options?
Look, you can start from the bathroom, for example. I mean, replacing most of the older homes in Australia have baths. So replacing that bath with a larger shower recess is really a good idea. But when you're doing that, to make sure there's no hob or the little curb.
Yeah.
And using a non-slip shower flooring is really integral in this, because a lot of older Australians have falls, and generally it's in the bathroom. So if we can try and prevent that from happening, that will allow them to remain at home longer.
So nothing that they need to step into, and a non-slip surface are the main things.
That's right. Oh, and grab rails.
Yeah.
Putting a grab rail there, and shower heads with more flexibility, so that ones that you can take off the wall, and that can help as you even get older, and you do need someone helping you to shower, for them to actually help you, and that's the shower head is a good thing, but it's also just think about toileting and having a bidet to assist somebody if they need help with toileting, that's much more pleasant for the person receiving the service as well as for the person who is doing the care on that basis. So, yes, and heating. A lot of people forget about heating when they're redoing a bathroom, but to put those lights up, those light tastics, I think they're
the warm globes. Yep,
that's right. Because as people do get older, they prefer not to shower every day, and they probably don't need to be showering every day. But a lot of the older Australians feel cold when they're having a shower, and particularly during winter. But to have everything warm, so it's a nice environment and an inviting environment for them to have a shower. So bathrooms are a key area. Knobs on doors, so rather than having your doorknobs as the turning type, because a lot of people have problems with grip and their fine motor skills. So it might be like a lever-style door knob. They could even use an elbow or, a wrist if need be, to press down on it and push forward, so that they're not actually twisting the wrists. So that's the sort of things to think about. Flooring, for example. Try and think about that. Tiles are very hard on your feet and very unforgiving when you have a fall, and that's where a lot of people have fractures, and that's usually fractures of hips and that sort of thing, and injure lower backs and coccyx, and creates all sorts of problems, and that can often be the beginning of the end for an elderly person. They don't heal as quickly, and they might have to think about getting increased care on that basis. So to introduce some softer type flooring such as vinyl, and there's some like cork flooring that actually looks quite good, or a soft wood that it looks quite nice, and light lino as well. And removing rugs. No matter how lovely they look.
When you said soft flooring, I thought, I'll put some rugs down, but no, that's not a good option.
No, look, I was at a client's place the other day and it was beautifully, they had beautiful rugs on the floor. I said, it's just an accident waiting to happen. And so that they are really a trip hazard, and just moving things away from each other so that there's a clear path if people have wheelie walkers or are using walking sticks, that they don't trip up on things. So it's just doing a walk through the home to make sure there is plenty of room either side of furniture, and that there's like a pathway clear from the dining room to lounge chairs, and the high work area, or the high where they're walking through and living through, from bedroom to bathroom and that sort of thing. And that there's consistency in the flooring, say that there's no big lips between carpeted areas and tiled areas or floor areas. So, and that difference of a 1 centimetre or less is actually considered a hazard. And make sure, one of the key things I've noticed on so many elderly people is wearing slip-ons rather than full slippers or full shoes. And slip-on shoes or slippers can create all sorts of problems for people. So it's just even thinking about that sort of thing to get in those closed-in shoes just to prevent them from having another trip hazard. So that sort of thing as well.
And Danielle, the thing that I worry about is, especially if you're getting to the point where the elderly person in your life might need a frame or even a wheelchair, or even have problems with steps. I'm thinking about the width of doorways and steps going up into the house. Are those big jobs to have a renovation that caters for them so that it's safer for them to move around?
It depends on the home, really. Yeah. We recommend a metre. Make sure your doorways are at least a metre wide. So if it's an older home, there's probably a likelihood that the doorways could be opened up. So you'd need a really good architect or an occupational therapist to work together to come through and make sure that home was able to be adapted. And that there might be other walkways that you can use instead of the smaller walkways where there's a load-bearing wall. So it's just a matter of making sure that your home is able to have those renovations done. Sometimes it's a minor renovation, sometimes it's a complete renovation, and it's purpose, they then getting it fit for purpose. But a lot of the retirement villages these days actually they're already purpose-built. So people moving into retirement villages, which is a great option for people who are generally on their own, who might have lost a loved one, and who are feeling a bit socially isolated or lonely, is an option for them. And those retirement villages are already purpose-built. They've got light switches that are larger, they've got the correct lighting, they've got no trip hazards, they've got wider doorways, the bathrooms don't have baths. and that sort of thing. So, there's already options around and available, but if you want to remain at home and not downsize into a retirement village, then, those are the things that can be done.
On Afternoons on ABC Radio Canberra, you're finding out more about things that you can do to a home to make it safer for an elderly, for the elderly resident who would prefer to live at home rather than going to a retirement village or a home. And with you is Danielle Robertson from DR Care Solutions. Now, Danielle, take me into the kitchen, my favourite room of the house, but obviously a place that, is of quite a bit concern. How do I make the kitchen a safer place for an elderly resident?
Look, I think one of the biggest things that we need to consider with the kitchen is making sure that you've got, number one, a smoke detector that works, or a smoke alarm that works, and that's key because a lot of older people think that they have turned off the stove or the oven, and they haven't, and they might have even left some food in there. So that's a key thing to look out for. There's some new innovations that you can have in kitchens. Microwaves should be at waist level rather than up high. That's one of my biggest bugbears when I walk into someone's home, is seeing a microwave over their head, because often they'll be heating up soups or hot dishes and pulling it and having it splash all over them, and that's when burns can occur. There's some new innovations around convection cooktops and stoves where they can actually turn off. There's a cut-off switch if they're on for too long and there's nothing on them. There's innovations around cutlery and utensils, and particularly those living with Parkinson's disease, to think about giving that person independence and being able to feed themselves. I do have a client who has Parkinson's disease, and her husband's been having to feed her for the last few years. And when I went in and I saw that and heard about it, I did some research, and we found a spoon, and it was made in Israel, but it actually enables the client, and a fork as well, enables the client to feed herself. So even though she's shaking, the back of the spoon is able to be put into her mouth. And it's an amazing innovation, about $300, so it's not a cheap spoon or fork, but it's given that lady independence to feed herself. And she said to me that was the best thing that came out of the assessment, that she was able to feed herself again and have that dignity, and rather than having her husband feed her. So, things like that. Make sure that fridges and freezers, you might think about getting a freezer fridge combination with the freezer on the bottom to enable you to reach in rather than pulling heavy stuff that's frozen from top down.
Right.
That sort of thing is important, and make sure your lighting is good. A lot of people...
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I didn't think about that, but, it makes sense. What should I be considering with lighting, Danielle?
Yes, look, there's a lot of people with macular degeneration or, who have very difficult vision and really find it very difficult. But, by your mid-60s, our eyes need actually twice as much light as in our 20s. So lighten them with stronger lighting and skylights, and also install illuminated light switches, or there's some plug-in sensors as you walk down a hallway that when, if somebody's walking at night, that they have a lit little pathway to the bathroom or, to the kitchen and that sort of thing. But there's also changing from incandescent lights with LED lights, and they last much longer, so they're way more efficient economically. Otherwise you're having to replace the normal light bulbs. But another thing also is to consider that, people who are living with dementia do not like darkened spaces. That can be quite confronting and ominous for people living with dementia. So to make sure that it is well lit and that they feel safe and that they don't get agitated if the lighting's not adequate. So there's a few things in there, and the lighting in the kitchen as well, to make sure that they're using salt instead of sugar or sugar instead of salt, because that's a big issue for older Australians. Often when they're baking, they might use salt instead of sugar. So having good lighting in cupboards and making things well labelled so that people know what they're using.
And what can you tell me about things like wearable alarm devices? Is that something that should be considered as well?
Absolutely. If somebody's living on their own or there is an older couple living together, and there's a couple on the market that have falls detection and GPS tracking, and they're the ones you want. It's all very well to have something with a button that you have to press, but if you've had a fall and become unconscious, then what's the point of having a button that you have to press? So to me, getting ones with, and there's some really good ones around. There's a Choice magazine one called Live Life Alarms, and that has falls detection and GPS tracking. And so that, say it's a couple and one is frail and one has developed dementia and living with dementia, that if something happens to the frail person and the person living with dementia starts wandering, that they can be tracked and brought home, and then, alerted if the person with frailty has also had a fall or is unwell. So even if there's two people in the home, I recommend that two of those people have a personal alarm each. But one of the things a lot of older people do is they take it off at night,
Yes.
or they take it off while they shower. And I absolutely say to them, look, you wear it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even in the shower, because that's where a lot of accidents occur at night when people get up to go to the bathroom and they have a fall and the alarm is next to the bed. There's no point that there. So just wear it 24/7.
Yeah. Danielle, this sounds like, there's so many things you can do and there's so many options. One of the concerns I have listening to this is cost. You might have elderly people who don't have the money for a lot of modification around the home. What are the options for them?
Look, the initial process for getting into My Aged Care, which is the government portal, is an assessment to assess your home and your care needs. It's entry level. So that would include an occupational therapist assessment, and that's free of charge. So they come in and they check the home, and there might be some things that they recommend that they're heavily subsidised by the government. So a rail in the bathroom or a toilet seat that's higher, that sort of thing is minimally on top of that. We work with a number of pensioners, so they don't have a lot of cash. So it is to make sure that we can get as much from the government subsidised services as possible and work from there. So that's what the entry-level sort of assessment covers. It's also like podiatry and also, it might be not widening doorways, but it could be subsidised to have a handyman come in and maybe open, a doorway, take a door off. If there's a problem, it might just give a little bit more space. So there are services out there that we can do, but just to let you know, there are long wait lists.
Yes.
And there's, a lot of people just say, look, I'll get my son to pay for it because, by the time I have it done, I might be, in residential aged care or not even here. I mean, my own poor dad, he passed away waiting for his level 4 home care package to come through, and that was over 12 months that he was waiting for his package. But we as a family contributed to make sure that he had enough care and support services to remain at home. But, not everyone's able to do that, and we understand that. So it's actually just trying to work with people within their financial capacity to pay to get the right outcome for them.
Danielle, thank you so much for your insights today. That's Danielle Robertson, DR Care Solutions, giving you a bit of an insight into some of the things that you should be thinking about if you're trying to modify a home so an elderly person can stay in their home rather than moving to a nursing home or a retirement village.